when you're manifesting doing the energy part, you definitely want to do that first, but it's kind of like you've got this ball and you're like throwing this beautiful pass to yourself, right? You also need to take action and catch that ball you just threw. So like, a month later, all of a sudden you notice like, oh, something's coming. Oh, there's that opportunity. You'll need to take action and catch that. You can't just sit there and wait and think somebody else is going to take action for you. So definitely action is required as part of the manifesting steps. It's also really helpful if you want to build trust in your intuition to try it out.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Ask Julie Ryan Show. It's where we blend spirituality and practicality to help you live a life of purpose and joy. Today, we have energy healer Jeffrey Allen with us, and we're going to talk about how to use intuition to create the life of our dreams. Jeffrey teaches people how to let go of endless dramas and how to improve relationships, deepen spiritual connections, and increase happiness in their daily lives. Please remember to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with your family and friends. Now let's go chat with Jeffrey. Jeffrey, so excited to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thanks, Julie. It's so great to be here.
You're in Tokyo. So we were talking before we started recording, and I said, this is like a sci-fi movie. I get to talk to you in the future.
Yeah, that's right. It's always the future here, and I don't know if that means anything, but it's kind of fun.
Well, it's really pretty amazing, back in the day when time travel was a thing that people wondered about and the time travel machines. And now any of us with a computer has a time travel machine at our fingertips, right? So I think of the prophets of long ago that predicted this. They're in heaven watching down going, whoa, they're really doing it.
Yeah, it's amazing. You're right. And the things that we take for granted now, like this call, across time zones and even days here, it seems like would have been magic not that long ago.
Absolutely. I agree. You help people create a life beyond their dreams. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's great. So, what I've found is that most of us are focused on like dreaming up the life that we want and then trying to make that life happen. So we're thinking like, I want to be like that person I admire, or I want to make a certain amount of money, or I want to have a relationship like this. And we kind of plan what we want to create, and then we try to execute according to that plan or make things happen. And what I've found, I spent 10 years doing private sessions for clients, and then in my own life as well, what I noticed is that model doesn't really work that well for everybody. Some people are able to do that, are able to sort of like think of things and manifest them and so on. But what I found is that the difference between people that are struggling to create their dreams and people that are where it seems easy to create their dreams mostly has to do with where those dreams come from. And so if the dreams are coming from my analytical mind, or like the way I'm admiring somebody else and thinking, oh, I really love what that person's doing, I want to be just like them. If we're thinking like this, those dreams are often very hard to manifest. And the people that are able to manifest dreams seemingly easily, right? It always looks easy from the outside because you just see the last step. You don't see the 10 years of preparation before the last step. But when it seems easy, that's because people are listening to a different set of guidance. They're listening within and tuning into what does my spirit want to create in this life, or what does my soul want to experience, or what's in the natural flow for me that I don't even know about. That's why I say I want to live the life that's better than my dreams or beyond my dreams, because if I'm limited to what I'm dreaming of, I'm not going to really reach the things that will surprise me and that are exciting, or they're beyond my own imagination. And so that's why I say that. It's like I never could have imagined creating the life that I have now. And in fact, if somebody told me, and a few times I had hints where my guidance had told me what was coming, and it was scary and seemed impossible. But if you kind of step into what life wants to create for you, or what your soul wants to create for you, you'll actually have a lot more fun. There's less effort involved, and you'll constantly be surprised at who you're becoming Yeah, it's really wonderful.
I agree. Two things come to mind. First of all, Steve Jobs, was such a visionary. And he said that the difference between him and other inventors and company founders and people like that was they were all doing focus groups to see what people want. And to your point, he'd say, they don't know what they want, first of all. And secondly, we need to help them know what they want by inventing things that will make their lives better.
Yeah,
Like,
that's great.
The iPhone and it started with the iPad what was it?
The iPod. Yeah.
iPod. Yeah, I'm thinking of the little music thing, the iPod and then the iPad and all of that. And I know from personal experience, I'm an inventor of surgical devices sold throughout the world, and I've founded 9 companies in 5 industries over my career. And this is the first thing in this woo-woo space that I've ever done without a business plan. And nobody follows them anyways. They're just for the financial guys. When you have a business plan, they're pulling these numbers out of the air, and then you got to reach them and have sales that reach them. But people say to me, especially my business friends and business colleagues will say, well, what are your goals with this? I say, I don't know. I don't have any. And they say, well, what are you going to do with this? Well, I don't know. Well, how did you come up with all this? I was just led. I'd have an idea and then I'd check it out. And then before long, it would materialize. And this is by far the most fun thing I've ever done in my whole life. Hands down, no contest.
That's great.
So I'm living proof of what you just said, that it really does happen. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think the reason too why, like when people ask you, what are your goals? And you say, I don't know. I think part of that is that when we're listening within to our, what's coming from within us, that sense of guidance, that sense of self or connection with the universe isn't a linguistic construct. It's not something that comes in words. So it's hard for us to explain it to other people in words. What it is, I learned a lot of this from studying with my wife, Usami. She puts this in the most clear terms I've seen. And she says that that type of information comes all at once. You just have in a moment, all of a sudden your analytical mind has turned off and you understand, whoa, I just got it. I got this whole flash of now, the future, all the people involved, all the different potentials that may happen, my past that brought me to here, all in a moment, I just got all of it. It wasn't like a book that you read, or something you listened to. It's just a sudden awareness of everything. And so it's hard to translate that into what people are used to, which is, what, like you said, what are your goals? What are you going to do with it? You're like, well, my goal is to follow my heart. My goal is to express myself beautifully and be authentic. My goal is to be of service to people. These are realistic and fantastic goals, but they're not usually what's listed on the business sheet, right?
Yeah. Have fun and live a life of joy, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's a goal too, which is really interesting. Where does intuition come from? Where do you think it originates?
I think intuition is, I guess to answer it literally, I would say it comes from everywhere. So intuition is just our natural inborn ability to, not really to be connected, or just that we are connected with everything. So when we look at our physical bodies, it seems really obvious. Our physical body is just separate from each other. So that's kind of the model we've built up of how everything works. We're separate. I'm here, you're there. We're separate in time and space. Yeah, this is all very true for physical objects on that level. But if we look at quantum mechanics, and if we look a little bit deeper at things that we can't see with our, that are so obvious, we notice that, actually everything is connected. Everything's connected across time and space. We're all connected to each other. When we look up at the stars, we're not actually seeing the stars right now. We're seeing, I find that fascinating. We're seeing stars that are billions of, the light that's coming from them is from billions of years ago, right? Because it takes that long for it to get here. So even the things we're looking at, it seems like present time, most of what we're seeing in the sky is gone now. And there's other things that we're not seeing that are there, right? And that's that sense of connection, or that sort of inborn or innate connection to all things that is is where our intuition comes from. When we're able to kind of quiet our mind and notice that we're connected to all things, we call that intuition. But we could also just call it life or consciousness or sentience, And we think we call it intuition because it's something that we're not used to. Culturally over the years, we've sort of been trained to like that's not really a cool thing to talk about or to do. There were even concerted efforts to like take anybody that was talking about it and sort of snuff them out. So, it's not a surprise that we're a little scared to talk about it now.
Yeah. Lock them up, put them in a nut house someplace and say the
or
silent.
burn them at the stake,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, exactly. Well, and when I was preparing for this conversation, I had the thought, I'd never thought about it before, but I thought, great guy to ask this to. Do you think that intuition is all the same? I think intuition comes from our spirit, and our spirit is one with source, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it. But it made me think, like, would you get the same intuition as I would get if we were stuck on a subway and we were not able to get out of the subway? I mean, would we all get the same intuition, or would our intuition be different? Like, you'd have the intuition, maybe you'd have the thought, well, I need to call my wife, or I need to send a text to somebody. And maybe my intuition would be, I need to go see if I can force those doors open to get out of this vehicle, this train. Let's say it was a subway. How do you think that works? Do we all get personalized intuition that comes in just for us? And is it kind of along the same direction for everybody, but it's just nuanced to whatever it is our life's journey is?
Yeah, great question. So from my perspective, intuition is, we're all looking from the lens of our own experience. And so that comes in terms of like our physical experience, like your body is the only part of you that's localized in time and space. So the rest of you can move across time and space freely, but the body cannot, right? So that's where we kind of have our focus for our experience typically. So in that situation on the train, I'm going to have that perspective from my body, but also from my experiences, my belief system that I've built up around the world. And our intuition has to filter through those biases that we have, or that perspective that we have. And that's one of the main reasons why people will get different results and seemingly contradictory results at times when they're tuning in. Like two people might see something quite different. Sometimes they'll see something that's different because, like I said, we're applying it to ourselves. Like in your case, you're saying, getting out is the important thing to me. So I'm basically asking the universe, how would I get out of this situation? And the information's available. Go to that door, open it up. For me, I might be thinking, my priority is that my family's not worried. So how do I take care of that? So that's the intuition that I'm receiving is, I need to give my wife a call. And so all the information's available, but we're sort of tuning into the channels that are matching what's important to us in the moment. And we all have different priorities. So it's coming in differently. But I have seen too, I think it's really fascinating for me to look at how much our beliefs influence what we're able to receive through our intuition. Because, I taught intuition training for many years, for over a decade. And what I found was that everybody has intuition. Everybody's a healer. Everybody's a channeler. These are normal human abilities. And the thing that gets in the way is typically when we start thinking about things, or when there's some intuition that's coming in that's not what I would expect, or maybe not what I'm comfortable with based on my cultural or religious preferences, right? So like when that intuition's coming in, I might be thinking, I don't know if that's intuition. Maybe that's like some dark thing talking to me, right? You're like, no, it's all the same. All the intuition is just intuition. It's not good or bad, or it's just it's just information coming from the universe. So it's really fascinating. And if you want to improve your intuition, like if you're listening to this and you want to improve your intuition, that's the single thing that I can say that'll help the most is being really honest about what you believe Like this has to do with my beliefs. This is what I'm hoping to hear, what I'm wanting to hear. And so I'm going to like be grateful I got something I wanted to hear. And then I'm going to go a little bit deeper and say, since I recognize this, is there something else that's available that might surprise me or delight me? Or is there something I'm afraid to hear that's right there? And when I start opening myself in that way, suddenly it's like I go from having this tunnel vision of like just using my intuition to validate my belief system, which is really fun, but just a little bit limited. And suddenly I start expanding and I'm like, oh, my intuition is expanding my belief system. Oh, wow, I'm open to more. Oh, I'm understanding myself more, understanding my relationships more and the world more and my life more. And oh, it's a lot more beautiful and less scary than I thought. So it's letting your beliefs expand is actually feels really, really good. Even though it's scary at first, feels really good.
Well, and all fear, most fear, 99.9% of it is fake. It's fake news. It's fake fear, right? It's stuff that we're afraid of that's irrational. Now, if you're standing in the road and the bus is headed towards you, get out of the road before it runs you over. Because yes, that's irrational fear that can harm you or kill you. But pretty much everything else is an irrational fear. We're all hardwired for fear. So that's where we're going to go first, just as a species. But I do believe, because I've done it myself, that we can train ourselves to quickly say, okay, is this a real fear? Is this a fake fear? And stay out of that fight or flight kind of a situation and expand out from there. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, and in intuition, I think most of us are so busy that we don't pay attention to it. Or we think of it and then we get distracted doing our daily lives and we forget about it. And it's a practice to be able to take action on it, I find.
Yeah, that's true. And most people believe that, or many people believe that intuition is something that other people have, or that you have to really work to develop. And I would say it's not really true. Everybody has intuition. The work that's involved is allowing yourself to listen. It's not that you're not sensitive enough to pick up something intuitively. That's happening all the time for everybody. It's just that there's so much happening up here for most people that is drowning out that sort of beautiful, quiet signal of the universe, that intuition. Our mind is so busy inventing, and writing stories and recounting our past. You mentioned fears. That's kind of where a lot of the fear comes from, is something scary happened back there. That was real. And it was back there. Right? So, I don't have to worry about it too much. It already happened.
Yeah. But we go to the place of, if it happened before, it's going to happen again, and it's guaranteed it's going to happen, so I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And I think, too, so many people don't take action. They'll have a thought, and then they don't take action. And it's been my experience, I'd love to hear your take on this, that we got to take action in order for anything to materialize.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, that's there's kind of a couple of good questions in there. And there's sometimes people think that I can just meditate and dream and manifest and do energy work, and then that's enough. I've done my part, and then all those dreams will come true. And what I like to say is, like, when you're manifesting doing the energy part, you definitely want to do that first. But it's kind of like you've got this ball, and you're like throwing this beautiful past to yourself, right, in the future. So you're creating opportunity in the future, but you also need to take action and catch that ball you just threw. So, like, a month later, all of a sudden you notice, like, oh, something's coming. Oh, there's that opportunity. You just, you need to take action and catch that. You can't just sit there and wait and think somebody else is going to take action for you. So definitely action is required as part of the manifesting steps. It's also really helpful if you want to build trust in your intuition to try it out, and don't just try it out on the most important, life-threatening or scary thing for you. That's not a good place to learn, actually. You want to try it out on day-to-day stuff, right? So like I used to do, I was taking intuition classes when I lived in Boulder, and I was a software engineer. And so I'd be driving to work, and I would just say, okay, let's just try this intuition thing out. Let's imagine while I'm driving that I can somehow see or feel or hear or whatever, which way is the best way to go. to avoid traffic, because there were many ways for me to get to the office. And I would follow those. And I was, pretty convinced after a week or so. I'm like, oh, it seems like things are going pretty well. And then I thought, but I don't really know, because I wanted them to go well. Seems like my intuition's working, but that could just be confirmation bias. So I'm going to tune in, and then I'm going to intentionally go the way that my guidance says is not the best route, see what happens. And that's when I really started to trust my intuition, because every day that I did that, there was traffic, there were accidents, there were road closures. Like every day I hit some delay, and I was like, wow, now I really know that my intuition works, because I'm not following it and I'm seeing the results. And this is great, so this type of fun experimentation is a great way to help you build trust with your intuition, rather than just using it for the biggest, like the most important thing or scariest thing ever, and then trying to be perfect the first time. That's not a good, that doesn't build confidence. It makes us feel like we can't do it.
Is intuition different from psychic ability? Because everybody has the circumstance where they think of somebody and then they either get a text from them or an email or a phone call, or they run into them and they say, oh, I was just thinking of you. What a coincidence. Well, there's no coincidence there. That's all energy and how we're all connected. And that channeling thing, how I perceive it, and I'd love to hear your take on this, Jeffrey, is that we tune into that station, that frequency of that information, and that person's picking up our, hey, how are you doing? And they call. So is there a difference between intuition and psychic ability?
Yeah, not in my book, so in my world, it's the same thing. This is just different labels. I think, when I started doing training in intuition, the school I went to was called Psychic Horizon Center. And, but this was kind of maybe in the late 90s, so there was, if you were hanging out in a new age crowd, that was a cool word. Like psychic was like something kind of cool, you're trying something out. But in my engineering career, that word meant that I was insane, right? So like I did, it's, you kind of want to choose the word that fits your audience, right? And so the first website I put up, I intentionally just put, I'm a psychic, I'm a healer, I'm a medium, because I wanted to immediately just scare away anybody that wasn't really a match. Like anybody that couldn't have me, that couldn't hear those words, probably I can't help those people. And so I don't want to waste their time, I don't want to waste my time. So I just put it right on the website, and I was like, it's not marketing. Marketing for me is is a filter. You want people that you can't provide a valuable service to immediately know that and go somewhere else, right? That's the best service I can do, is to don't waste time on me. I'm not the guy for you. Go somewhere else, right? And but over the years, I've started to use the word intuition more, right? Because that feels a little bit better. Psychic is kind of charged. People usually think of it as a fortune teller. So you're going to look at me, you're going to tell me the future. And I won't say that that's not possible. It is possible to see the future probability space, definitely. I spend a lot of time doing that for people. But that future depends on how everybody responds, right? So it's not, trying to predict the future in a way that's accurate doesn't even make sense. The value of prophecy is to make us aware of the possibilities that are coming, so we can make better choices based on a broader perspective. So if you see somebody who's predicting different events, like, oh, this is bad things going to happen in the world, or these events are going to happen, and they're accurate over and over and over. I saw this with I think it was Gordon Michael Scallion, who was doing all these predictions back in the 90s. He was right on. And then all of a sudden he started to miss, and he was just off. And people thought, oh, he lost his gift of prediction. And it was actually my teacher, Michael Tamura, who explained it differently. He said, actually what happened there is he delivered the message to enough people that enough of us said, I don't want that future, that I don't want to be on the road that we're obviously on, because he's predicting it. And enough people said, let's go a different way. And so now we're not on that road he's seeing anymore. That means he did his job. Not that he's not good anymore. So it's...
Well, whenever somebody wants me to give them what's going to happen in the future, I say, look, here's what I can give you right now. at this moment in time. It may be different in an hour, in a week, in a month, because there are a bazillion variables that come into play that can affect an outcome. And I always give that caveat because I say, if somebody is a fortune teller or a psychic or whatever, and they're saying, I have a 100% accuracy, I said, run the other direction. Nobody does, because things are unfolding and nobody can predict an outcome. To your point, there's a probability of it being accurate, but who knows even what that probability is?
Yeah. Well, and somebody that's 100% accurate, I mean, that does happen sometimes, but there's other explanations. So typically that person is very persuasive and is very good, whether intentionally or not, is very good at programming their clients into a particular belief system, right? So like if I can convince everybody that they're going to find a great relationship, and I'm so compelling and convincing, that there's a good chance that will happen because they change their mindset, right? So I've taken my beliefs and they've adopted them. So now they're on my road. It's looking like what I said. But it doesn't mean that if you didn't talk to that person, you would definitely have gone that way, right? So people don't think about these things. You just think, I talked to them, it happened. It was meant to. It would have happened anyway. It's like, no, probably not, because you're.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. The whole placebo effect thing.
Yeah. Well, placebo, or you could just call it manifesting. That's the popular word now.
Yeah. Well, I have a medical background, not as a medical, professional, but as somebody that was in the industry for a long time on the supply side. And I know that the studies that are done on most medicines, the placebo people in that study, the people taking the placebo, the sugar pill, perform better. They get healed faster, more completely than the people taking the medicine. Always. It's usually like, I want to say the number is 52 or 53% of the people that are taken, of the people in the study, it's more effective, 53%, and those are all placebo.
Yeah. And it's a good example of what we talked about earlier about taking action. So taking action is really important. It doesn't mean that the action itself did anything, right? It's that you took an action with the intention to create something or to manifest or to heal, or, that I leaned in, I got off the fence, I committed to doing something. And even if I took a sugar pill and didn't know it, just the fact that I committed enough to try something changed my path. And I love the placebo effect. I mean, it's such a beautiful example. And it doesn't take away from the fact that medicine works. Medicine still works, but also intention works.
Yeah, I agree. How do you define energy, and does it have any limitations in this work that you and I do?
I usually use energy just to mean the intangible things that we can't touch, that we can't see and touch and taste and hear. But on a broader perspective, energy it's just everything. It's like saying universe or everything, or there's really not anything that doesn't fall into that category of energy. Right? So it's a beautiful term in that way. You can use it with without air. But I think a lot of people use energy or think about energy in terms of what they've seen in the movies or sci-fi, or like it's some kind of magical thing, or and things feel like that when you're first delving into energy work and intuition. It does feel a little bit like, I've got some new superpowers, I can't believe it. I remember going through that. And it's not that there's some magical superpowers that you have, it's just that you weren't aware of how powerful you are and how connected we are to everything. And that, I not only can I influence the world around me, but I am influencing the world around me all the time. But if I start doing it just 1% consciously instead of 100% unconsciously, that's a huge change. Like all of a sudden it looks like everything's going my way.
Yeah. I go back to probably my third grade science lessons where we learned that everything's made out of energy. And when you're sitting at the desk, and it feels very solid, it's just energy that's moving more slowly than energy. And certainly now we have a lot more examples of energy moving without us being able to see it from when I was 8 in the third grade, with microwaves and Wi-Fi and my gosh, all this stuff that we have now in our modern society. But I go back to, and I agree with you, I go back to its source. It's God, it's the universe, it's whatever. And we all are a fractal of the divine. So we have the ability to access energy, and we are energy. Everything's made of energy. When I connect to a client, it's my spirit that's pure energy connecting to their spirit that's pure energy. And I'm on the Jeffrey channel. And Jeffrey has a frequency that his spirit keeps throughout all of his lifetimes. And that's how I'm able to reach that person, whether their spirit's in heaven, whether they're not in the human form anymore, or whether their spirit's still attached to a body. How do you do what you do when you do the healing things with your clients? Do you connect into your clients energetically? Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's very similar to what you said. So it's probably the exact same thing. And I'm not taking private clients anymore. I have to say that, otherwise I'll get lots of requests. But when I do tune in energetically, the first thing I like to do is, for me, I always want to have as little information ahead of time as possible. So, this was when I was doing clients, you could do video calls, but it was kind of new. It was like Skype. And I prefer just audio. So I like to have the person say their name a few times. And that's enough for me to catch that frequency. Here's who they are. And I don't think of it as connecting with them, because I'm always connected with everybody. We all are. So it's more like what you said, it's kind of like tuning into the frequency. I'm just like, okay, I caught that now. So now I want to spend a few minutes just exploring, like, here's what I'm getting. Here's the information I'm receiving when you said your name. And we usually go for like 3 to 5 minutes there. And I like to do that because I don't know anything about the person, so I'm not thinking about them. I haven't read their bio or heard their questions. And that gives me an unbiased, or as unbiased as I can get. I'm still biased by my beliefs, but I'm not biased by my thoughts about them, right? And that's how I like to look at it. And then from there, it's really fascinating. I mean, if you have time, I would recommend it for everybody. Spend a little time practicing trying to tune in like this and then communicate. You'll learn a lot about how the universe works, just because you're not doing something normal, right? So you're just tuning in and going just on that channel. And from there, if somebody mentioned like, my brother, then I can see then I see the brother's energy there and what's going on. And they're talking about brother's wife and kids and the past. And it's just like somebody's giving me a guided tour through the universal library of all information in past, present, and future. And so I'm just, it's just my awareness kind of following along with where people want to go. And then I'm narrating what I'm observing. And it kind of goes like that. And it's interesting because I'm not driving in any way. I don't have an agenda other than to kind of put words to what's there. Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah, you're being led. I think if you're looking for a new career path, you would be a great OBGYN, because when a woman's in labor, with that voice of yours, you could be saying, okay, Susie, I know. And you just have to breathe through this contraction. And I promise the outcome's going to be really good. And I think you would be, with your voice and your demeanor of being really calm. There's a lot of women watching this episode that are going to agree with me. Oh, God. But let's change directions for a minute. What's duality?
So the duality, for me, it's two things, which is kind of a pun right there, right? So I've got an energy training course called Duality with Mind Valley. And And that's actually not the name I came up with. That Vishnu has that kind of brilliance for naming things and in a way that's really interesting. And that had to do with the duality we're just talking about of there's this physical world that we're all used to interacting with, and there's something else. Let's call it energy world. And if you start using them both, wow, just things really open up. All the things we've been talking about. But more recently, when I think about duality, I tune more into the work that I'm doing with my wife Hisame, which is called Spirit Mind. And she has a really fascinating view of duality because it actually has three things in it. And so it's duality is this plane right here where we've got good and bad and right and wrong and pain and love and fear, and like we've got all these things that are seeming opposites. And so there's this horizontal line that most of us live our lives on of trying to say, I'm over here in this, quote, negative space. And so I want to be over here in the positive space instead. And so we're always kind of striving to move along this line to like one corner, one edge. And the way she describes is really fascinating. She says, yeah, that's the world that almost everybody lives in, this world of duality. And that's where all our beliefs are, all our experiences are, our dreams, our goals, and everything. She said, but that's actually just a construct of the mind. You could call it virtual reality, if you will. It's a virtual reality that we all live in. It's the Matrix, right? She said, but what's more interesting from her perspective is that our soul is on this different axis right here, which she calls spirit mind. And she said, and this axis doesn't have any of that. It doesn't have judgment. It doesn't have, it just has awareness. So I can see, like when you start practicing the spirit mind awareness, you're just observing yourself. Like I can see, it's like there's two of me. I've got this mind that does this, which we call material mind in this training. And then I've got this mind here, which is basically God consciousness. It's the universe, it's everything. I don't really have that because we all share that, right? So spirit mind there's just one of these. There isn't like one each. Material mind, there's kind of one each, right? We each have our own little perspective and our own views, what's right and wrong, and so on. But as I'm able to engage and listen to this spirit mind awareness, I'm able to observe myself down here and say, oh, my mind is really busy right now. My mind is in pain here, or fear, or celebration, or I'm able to sort of observe that from a higher perspective. And as I do that, the more I practice, the more I'm able to sort of build up this awareness that's not based in duality. It's not based in plus and minus, good and bad, right and wrong. So I'm able to observe from just a pure space of consciousness. And that's fascinating to me because I can see the results in me. Like it's given me a really peaceful way to view even the most kind of onerous conflict within myself, because I can say, yeah, there's two parts of me. There's this part that is living in duality, and that's real too, and that's valid. But it's not all of me. There's also me that's experiencing this from a place of love, right? This is where we talk about unconditional love would be here, and then just sort of general love would be down here. General love, like, I love you, bro, or I love pizza, or, or even, just kind of the way we usually use the term is probably more based in conditional love rather than unconditional. So kind of a long answer, but that's, for me, that's my most recent experience with duality is this experience of, I simultaneously have two seats of consciousness. I have my material mind that operates in the material world, and then I have access to spirit mind, which is the spirit world.
And duality, in my opinion, is the human experience. We come here to create, and when we know what we don't want, it helps us create what we do want. So duality is an essential component, in my opinion, of the human experience. And when we access the spirit mind, as you call it, it helps us live a life of purpose and joy. And is that what you're finding with being able to blend the two, blend the human mind and the duality based mind
Yeah,
with the spirit mind?
it's probably even a little bit deeper. It's hard to put into words, but I would agree with what you said. Like the duality, this consciousness right here, definitely has to do with our incarnation. This has to do with being in a body. So because this world that we're in at this sort of level of vibration of physicality and so on has a natural dualistic nature. There's nothing wrong with that. So that's really important. That's a valid perspective. But I would say this perspective of spirit mind is really different. It's much simpler. It's not striving to like you said, if I know what I don't want, then I know what I want. So this is that's actually a really powerful way to navigate change and conflict, and it helps us. But we're still sort of moving on this axis of what do I want, what do I not want, from maybe a conscious perspective. And with spirit mind, the wants, there's still want or desire here, but it's more simple. Like one time I asked my wife, so what's your purpose? People like to, say, what's your life purpose, or what's the meaning of life? And she said, oh, that's really easy. My purpose is to create happy memories. And I was like, okay, that's really simple, but I can feel it right now. It's like, it's so profound in so many ways. That means many, many, many things, right? But it was just in a couple of words, just to create happy memories.
Yeah. Well, it's like a Disney line, doesn't it? Sounds like, the happiest place on earth. You want to create happy memories, making memories. There's a song, making memories, that they play when you're at the parks. And so, yeah, interesting. All right, let's change directions for a minute. How does an IT engineer who's a linear thinker get into the woo-woo space? Did you grow up in a spiritual family? Tell us about your journey. How did you get here from having such a linear thinking mind?
Yeah, well, I would say software engineering and energy work are much more similar than people might think. Now I'm speaking from I was a software engineer back in the late 80s, early 90s, my first job. And so back then there wasn't very much to teach about. I got a 4-year degree, but they're like, we don't even know there's not even 4 years worth of stuff to tell you, because it was such a new, sort of undeveloped field at the time. But what's the similarity is that when you're dealing with hardware and mechanics, things have to be real, right? If you need, like if I was doing a project in my house and I ran out of nails, I have to drive to Home Depot and get more nails. There's this thing about quantity and physical things and timing, and when you work in software, you don't have any of that. So in the software world that I grew up in, basically you're like kind of the god of your own universe. You just declare what you want. Like, I have more of this because I just said I did. Now I do. And then I'm going to put those two things together. And there's really no limits to what you can do. Your only limit is your own imagination and creativity. And so to me, that sounds a lot like energy work, right? All of a sudden I'm dealing with the intangible, with the non-physical, and all the techniques and learning and training and experience that I got as a software engineer played directly into the way that I do energy work. Yeah, so it's very similar. But let's see. But how did I get here? For me, it started in my college years. One, I think my parents were actually quite into self-help classes. So I probably listened to a lot of that growing up and didn't even realize it.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Colorado.
Okay.
So kind of like a redneck small town kid, cowboy boots, a belt buckle, and
Yeah.
we'd go out with my dad to the gun range and shoot guns, this kind of thing. So and so that's where I grew up. But they were really interested in self-help, and so I kind of probably got some of that messaging coming in. And my parents are very open to new things and to kind of living life in a way that they're enjoying. They don't get in a rut for long. They quickly say, "Oh, this isn't working well. But what would work better? Let's try that." So they have a certain openness that really, probably set me up with some freedom that maybe most people don't feel. And then in my college years, I started having experiences that I couldn't explain, that were sort of intuitive experiences or psychic experiences. My girlfriend at the time, that was normal for her, and just hanging out with her, I was having those experiences too. And at the time I was getting 2 computer science degrees and a mathematics degree all at the same time. And it was just like, I don't know what to do with these intuitive experiences. Don't fit into this belief system that I'm learning about, but they are actual experiences that are happening repeatably with other people that are verifiable. So to me, this looks like data. So from a scientific mindset, I shouldn't throw out the data and just stick with my beliefs. I should investigate the data and then question my beliefs, right? And that's the direction I took. And pretty soon it was a slippery slope. I realized my beliefs didn't seem to come from anywhere tangible or verifiable. It's just what everybody said and is saying. But my experiences sure look like there's a lot of other stuff happening. And so I just dove right into let's seek out the most crazy out there experiences I can have, because I just want to try to know. It doesn't have to be true, but it doesn't have to be false either. I just want to see for myself instead of taking somebody else's word for it.
Can you give us a couple of examples of things that happened to you when you were in college that started you on that path of thinking, okay, there's more to this story here than meets the eye?
Sure, yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of things. But ones that come to mind is probably one of the first times I saw my girlfriend then, intuitive girlfriend, I saw this huge light around her. I remember I was in the cafeteria at the school and she was walking out and I just saw this big light glowing around her. And it didn't strike me as odd that the light was there, but it struck me a little bit as odd that I had never seen it before. I didn't know people had this. I didn't really think anything. It just was all an experience, right? And then one night, the example that I like to tell is one night I was sleeping, and she was next to me in bed, and my body just kind of did a little, jerk like it does sometimes when I'm sleeping, and I was having this dream, and then the curtains parted in the dream like this, and then her face was there, and she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I'm just, my body jerked a little bit." She said, "Okay." And then the curtain closed, my dream continued. And then I was like, that's weird. So I opened my eyes, I looked over at her and she was looking at me. And I said, "Why didn't you just talk to me?" She said, "Oh, well, you weren't here. I thought it'd be easier to just go where you were and talk to you there." And I was thinking, okay, I don't even know what to make of that. I didn't know that was possible. I don't know what to do with this information. So those are the kinds of experiences I was having regularly. But I couldn't just ignore them because, you have to decide in this situation. All of us have this at times where things happen that we don't understand or don't fit in with what should be happening according to our beliefs. You have to decide which is insane. Is my experience insane or are my beliefs insane?
Yeah.
And I'm using that strong word just because it kind of drives home the point. And what I decided was probably my beliefs. I'm gonna go for the scientist in me, scientific-minded person in me wants to base my beliefs on information that I'm actually experiencing. And that's what set me down that road of gathering experiences that people said weren't possible.
Did you ask her where she thought you were when she said, well, you weren't here?
Yeah, because she knew I was dreaming. So she just went into the dream world.
Oh, she did that on purpose.
Yeah, for her, this was just kind of normal. This was kind of like something that's kind of in her family, and it just wasn't, her awareness included a lot of stuff that mine didn't. So,
That's why you were attracted to her, because
yes,
she
yes. And
was
that's why I saw
teaching
that
you.
light around her that was my guidance saying, here's an opportunity. Like this person has something that you're going to really enjoy. There's going to be a connection there, information, something that's really going to help you.
Well, and that's been described throughout the ages as a halo. Old masters' paintings all have halos around supposedly holy people, but we all have one, or aura, or energy field, is what you were perceiving because you were hanging out with her. I love that. So your family, when you decided to go into this woo-woo space, they were supportive? They didn't think that, okay, he's smoking some serious amounts of weed here at school?
Well, I'd say yes and no. Oddly, I never really got into smoking weed, but you'd think so from the long hair that I had for a long time and so on. but my dad was a pharmacist, so I always got the don't do drugs lecture. and yeah, my family was both supportive and cautious, and then sometimes not supportive at all, just depending on who in the family. So kind of the full variety that most people get. And my parents actually went through and took the same 6-week how to heal yourself class at the psychic school that I went to, just because they wanted to try it out and see what was happening. And they're very open to new things. But my family in general, we grew up with Christianity as a background for our belief system. And so there were times where the things that I'm doing are not acceptable to some people in the church. With some people, it's totally fine. But so I got kind of both things. Some people are like, "Oh, that's all devil work," and I was like, "Oh, it never even occurred to me to think something like that. I was just exploring with an open heart and love and joy. Like I didn't really notice any devil in any of this, but I'll keep my eyes open for that. I'm not saying it's not there, but I just haven't seen it yet. So yeah, I've had everything from support to condemnation.
I was raised Catholic, and I think that Catholics do a really good job of getting children prepared for spirit. We have saints and angels and the Holy Spirit and all that kind of stuff. And so that foundation is laid early on that, okay, there is more to the story here than meets the eye.
Yeah, religion can be really powerful, like really opening, really fantastic in many, many ways. I think the trick with any belief system, whether it's religious or not, is to be aware of what I would call superstition. So that's like if I don't understand something deeply, it's easy to build up some stories around that. And then to think that those stories are true, especially if a bunch of people are telling the same stories. And that's where we tend to get ourselves in trouble, where it's like, oh, this story is more important than being present in the moment and seeing what actually applies right now. So that's where we kind of get ourselves in trouble.
It seems to me, and maybe it's just in my sphere because of what I do and what you do, seems to me that many people in this day and age are moving away from okay, I'm part of this religion and I believe everything they teach, into that being a springboard into their spirituality, which is what I think religion that was their initial purpose. And certainly it's become what it is today. But it's rare that I will run into somebody who was like, even my parents and my grandparents and my great-grandparents, where, well, you're not a Catholic, you're not a Lutheran, you're not a Jew if you don't believe everything that the religion teaches. And I marvel at that because I think philosophers have been examining this stuff for 2,000 years, in some instances way longer than that, many more thousands of years. So, how does that work? And do you agree with that people seem to be searching for more spirituality instead of just believing the dogma and living their lives by that?
Yeah, I do. And I'd kind of frame it a little bit differently. So I'd frame it in the terms of a kind of material mind and spirit mind, in the sense that we're kind of moving out of the age of dependence, where I'm looking to the outside world. I'm dependent on what other people tell me I have to form my beliefs. I have to change my behavior. I have to be something according to what other people think. So there's that external perspective of me is the important part. And we're moving out of that really rapidly. And it's just the way the energy is shifting on the planet right now. So as we move out of that, it's natural for us to look more inside and say, oh, this is how I'm feeling. This is how, like, my spirit is kind of feeling full of love here, where before I'm, even though people from the outside are telling me that's scary, I'm not feeling that, and that's okay. Like, it's okay to have my experience based on my experience. My experience doesn't have to be overwhelmed by other people's perceptions of my experience or other people's opinions about me. And so we're rapidly shifting out of that dependence on external information. And so that's playing out everywhere, but we're also seeing it playing out in our belief systems. We're seeing it playing out in religion, where people are saying, just like you did, that there's a lot of beautiful stuff here that I really love about my religion and my culture, and I'm going to keep all of that. But if other people are telling me something that doesn't really jive with my internal compass and my experience, that's okay too. Like, I don't have to make that right or wrong. See, it doesn't have to be right or wrong. I'm up here just saying, there's a lot of perspectives. There's a lot of stories. Like, I can see that from a higher perspective. Like, there's a lot of stories and they're all okay. But I don't have to decide which ones are right or wrong anymore. It's just okay. I can just have my life. So we're moving out of that external focus into an internal focus.
Yeah, beautifully said. You utilize sacred geometry in your work. Please explain to all of us what you consider sacred geometry to be, and then how do you utilize it?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So sacred geometry, that's a really fun question, actually. So probably the best reference I have is, if you've ever heard of the man Nassim Haramein. So he's kind of an alternative physicist that's out there, and really incredibly intelligent man, incredibly deep awareness of how the universe works on a physics level. So he's working on kind of the level of like Einstein's general relativity and in quantum physics. So he's an expert in these types of situations. And I was lucky enough to spend 10 days with a small group of us studying with him out in Hawaii years ago, and learning about the geometry of how space-time divides. So if you look, there's a specific patterns that we see all over in nature, from the cosmic scale down to the tiny microcosm scale, these patterns happen because it has to do with the way space-time divides and the way that it moves and changes. And what I liked about studying with him is that I realized that, all the things that I learned that were sacred geometry, all the things that I was taught to like visualize this or imagine this, or like all of those were representations of this unified field of how space-time divides. So for me, sacred geometry is just an understanding of the way that things work. And if you're visualizing things that are similar to how energy actually works, then that visualization will kind of take root more easily, right? So like I always, in my training, I'll always use a rose as a symbol. I don't have one here, unfortunately, but if you put a rose out in front of you, you kind of imagine that that's indicating that, I have permission to have my space, and everybody else has permission to have their space. This rose is a beautiful symbol like that. But if you look at the rose itself, at the geometry in the rose, this is the same geometry of how space-time divides. So it's a natural visualization to use. Same with the geometry of a tetrahedron or a sartetrahedron or an octahedron. These are all actual actual things in physics. Yeah.
Okay. So no
It's
surprise.
not woo-woo, actually.
No. Yeah. But no surprise that you have a math background, with all of the stuff that you learned. Say more about the rose. You piqued my interest on that. How does the rose represent how energy works?
Yeah. So if you look at the rose, so the way that I would teach to use this is that oftentimes we feel overwhelmed, especially if we're sensitive. We feel like I go out in the world and I'm overwhelmed by other people's ideas or thoughts or feelings. And I get a lot of people coming to class that have that situation. I had that too. And so what you want to do is you want to imagine, you're just going to visualize a rose, just the image of a rose right at the edge of your aura. So it's I'm a little bit close, but it'd be, kind of out here, right? And you're just going to, with this intention, when I visualize this rose, I'm just going to say, one thing, this is not protecting me from the world, right? Because protection is brittle and it's not necessary. This is a permission rose. So it's giving me permission to have all the space between this rose and myself as my own. So I'm basically just taking seniority of my space. This actually is my energetic space around my body. And then I'm giving the other person permission. Like, so if I was here in person with you, Julie, I'd say, energetically, I'm giving you permission to have all the space in the rest of the universe, except for this space right here that I'm occupying. So this is a very generous offer. Right? You can have all the space in the entire universe. All I want is the space right next to me that I'm occupying. And so when you do this, suddenly the energy gets really clear. So instead of me taking on all the vibrations that you're using, your chakras are naturally vibrating at certain frequencies, your chakras in your body. And each one's like an orchestra, of frequencies. And so because just like with two guitars, if I play one guitar, the string on one guitar, the string on the other guitar will vibrate across the room. Same thing with harps or any string instruments, right? So this is just harmonic resonance. Same thing happens with our chakras. So you're playing your song all the time. If I'm not tuned in, I'm going to just pick up all the songs of all the people around me. Those are going to be playing through my chakras, and I'm going to feel a little bit nuts. I'm going to feel like I need to go be by myself. I can't be around people. This is when people say they're really sensitive, right? It's like, okay, so how do you correct that? Just give yourself permission to just acknowledge, oh, this is my space. I don't have to tune into everything that everybody else is broadcasting. I can just have my own space. I can tune into what's me. And all of a sudden, like, wow, I feel so good. I feel so light. I feel so expansive and powerful and happy. And, just all this stuff comes in because I'm feeling me, right? If you're not feeling good, there's only one reason. It's because you're not feeling you. Right? Your energy always feels good to you, right? So if you're not feeling good, there's just a lot of other stuff you're feeling. I don't mean physically, right? Your physical body can feel bad, but energetically, if you're not feeling good, it's because you're just you're letting all this external information run your life and your energetic system, your energy body. So just visualizing a rose will help that kind of calm down. And then and as people get closer, you can kind of spring load this. If somebody comes in close, the rose gets closer and closer to your body. And then when they go away, it sort of moves back out to the edge of your aura. And so it's kind of spring loaded. And probably the most fun example I had of this was teaching this in Tokyo, because everybody takes the train in Tokyo, and the train is crowded, like crowded beyond belief. And so many people that are sensitive hate getting on the train. It's just overwhelming. And I had my students coming back the next week and saying, I can't believe it. I'm comfortable on the train now. I just visualized that rose, and all of a sudden, I'm okay. The first time ever in my life, I don't mind being on the train. And because I'm not overwhelmed, I'm able to kind of look around and observe the people around me and enjoy myself. And it's like I have my space. It's like, oh, yeah. Yeah, the rose is a really powerful tool. And so the reason why it works is that visualization. You're actually visualizing the way that space-time divides naturally. So you're reinforcing that barrier around you. Yep.
When you first said, and we were talking about sacred geometry, and you used the rose as an example, I was envisioning the way that the rose is made in those spirals of those petals, all getting down to the center, which is source, and then it spirals out from source. And I was thinking, okay, like there's some hidden meaning in the roses because I'm a rose fanatic. I love roses. I have them all over my garden.
Yeah, they're great. And and you're absolutely right. Everything you said there. That's just the way that the reason a rose looks like this is because a rose is not thinking about what it wants to look like. It's just following the energy of the universe, right? So it's naturally unfolding in this way.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. When you do energy healing, can you explain a little bit about what you do and how you do it and what you teach, since you're not doing private clients anymore? But perhaps when you did, if you have a story you can share with us of something that is along those lines of what we would consider to be energy healing.
Sure. Yeah. And maybe I can frame it in terms of, so that if people are listening and want to do energy healing, maybe they pick up some tips that you can use if you're listening. And so, yeah, if I'm doing a healing, so the first thing I would do, and I still do healings, I just don't charge, and I just do them for people that are close to me, right? and that never really stops, right? But the first thing I do is, and that you need to do is, you need to get your space. So I can't really help somebody if I'm off center. So just take a moment, breathe, be present in my body, just really be here in the present moment. If you have energy tools like grounding, creating a rose, working with your aura, use all those tools, whatever you have, or other tools. Could be crystals or stones. Everybody's got access to different sets of tools. And so once I feel really present, then I would do the same thing for the room. So the space I'm in, just a quick hello to make the room kind of safe. I can imagine a rose at the edge of the room. That helps. It's like, okay, now I've tuned into this sacred space right here. Space is really clean. I'm feeling really clean. The person is here. Already, I haven't even thought about the person, and we've gone through a significant healing, right? And so now what I do is I just open up. I do channeled healing. So I'll just tune in and say, just kind of a little blessing, and just bring through whatever energy is going to be the most beneficial for that person. And for me, possibly because of my background and my childhood, I tune into the Christ energy. So I just let Christ energy flow into the top of my head, down through the body, out the arms. I just let myself be a vessel for that energy to come through. And then at that point, I'm just listening and following and watching and learning and having fun. So I'll know, I just put my hands on their head. Then at some point, I don't know why, but I need to move down to their feet or put my hand on their arm, or I'll just sort of let myself be guided. I'm not really in charge here, but I'm conscious. I'm not like an out of body healer. That's a different set of interesting techniques, but but I like to be present because it's fun, and I just let the information flow through me. And then what I like to do, because I can see energy and I'm reasonably good at putting it into words, I like to kind of narrate what's happening. So I'll just tell people, right now there's a lot of congestion around the chakra in your heart. So there's some pain that you're feeling, some tension you're feeling, a little bit hurt about what somebody said. And so, and as I'm talking about those things, that helps the person follow along. And as their awareness goes there, it will naturally start to release. Because they're in that space of unconditional love that I'm doing my best to be in. And so they're able to see their own pain and energy and blocks, if you will, from that perspective of love, which is all it takes for them to move, right? Because what they're doing is they're getting off of just this plane here. We're starting to move up into this different axis of reality in the healing space, and then we can see all of this without judgment, right? And so from that space, all this can start to release. And it's really simple in some ways. It's not something specific to me that other people can't do. It's basically I'm just getting into resonance with the greater energy of the universe, and then letting that flow through me the best I can without impedance. and then trying to narrate so that people's overactive minds can keep up. And like, because if you don't do that, people can get a great healing, and then they move out of that field, and then everything comes back, right? Because they just bring back all the stuff that they were carrying that they felt like they needed to carry. But if you put a little words to it, then people can kind of like, oh, not only do I feel better, but it's okay. I don't have to feel guilty about feeling better. And maybe can be my new norm. And, so it can kind of continue.
Yeah. And I find too that when people visualize what we're articulating, what we're describing, it helps the healing integrate into their bodies. Interestingly enough, when you were clearing that space in the room, I could feel it and I could smell it. And it smelled to me like a spring day with very moderate temperatures. The sun was shining and just the freshness in the air, which was interesting because I've spent so much time in surgeries developing products and testing prototypes and stuff like that. It was interesting when I was smelling that because it smelled like a springtime day to me instead of a sterile environment. I don't know that I was expecting a sterile environment, but that thought came into my head that it was a springtime day instead of a sterile environment.
Yeah, that's great. That's really good perception. Well, of course, because you were asking, I was, you were included in the energy we're doing here, right?
Yeah.
And people that are listening,
I could see it, I could smell it. Yeah.
And people listening will have the same effect too. So it's really fascinating. The work that we do isn't bound in time and space. Like I said, our body is the only part of us that's localized in time and space.
Right. I say time doesn't exist in the spirit world. Time is a human creation. Who invented time? Was it the Romans or the Greeks or one of those?
Yeah, well, I think it has to do with the original concept. If you imagine yourself as just God consciousness only, and then this idea of what would it be like if I could see myself from the outside? Because universal consciousness doesn't have that perspective, right? And so that's interesting. So, I sort of remembered this at one point, many years ago, and it's like, oh, that was sort of the original concept that led down this grand spiral rod right now into manifesting in physical form, where it seems like we're separate.
Right. Right.
And I imagine at some point we'll probably spiral back out and just be collective. Yeah.
Well, I have many more questions for you, but I have two last ones as we're winding this down. First one is, why do we incarnate?
Why do we incarnate? Yeah, good question. I think, for me, it's really exciting to be here. Like it's hard to hug somebody when you're just spirits, right? So, maybe it's the hugs. It could be the food. The food's pretty good here, right? So I think that, I'm joking, but I think that we incarnate to experience things, basically to experience time. When you're getting everything all at once, it's beautiful and wonderful, but somehow when you break it down and take like one little moment at a time, there's something really profound and sort of easy to appreciate about that. Like it just slows everything way, way down. Yeah. But I think the why probably goes back to that experience I was, trying to explain was, I think the why has to do with the original thought of God, if you will, of what would it be like if there was an external perspective, and then that thought spiraled all the way down into what's happening right now. Yeah. But I wouldn't take it too seriously. Like I wouldn't, people like to ask, what is my life's purpose? Things like this. I think it's easy to create stress for yourself if you're imagining like there's something that I'm supposed to be doing here that's so important that I incarnated, but I don't know what that thing is, and I'm going to have to guess. Like this is obviously a setup for failure, right? So it's just like trying to get rid of that belief system. Just I'm here to live my life in a way that's to learn to be graceful instead of obnoxious, to smooth out my rough edges, to learn and expand and grow, and we're all doing that all the time. So just try to, in your search for meaning or for purpose, I encourage people Don't let that be a stressful search. Let that be a beautiful search. It doesn't have to be stressful. That just means you're kind of thinking of it in terms of like your life was a business, which it isn't.
Seems to me that you're well on your way to mastering that, creating a life of joy and not getting too hung up on all of the details along the way, and being able to teach people. What a fascinating conversation. I could go for another hour, but I am respectful of your time. Where can people learn more about you? How can people learn more about you and your work?
Oh, thanks, Julie. So there's probably the easiest place is my website. So you can go to iamjeffreyallen.com, and that'll talk about kind of the energy work. So I've really got two major sets of training that I do right now with Mindvalley. I teach about energy work and intuition, and really what's unique about that training or fun about that training is it's taking these concepts that I learned just because they were interesting. It was like back when, it's funny, woo is actually, I don't know if people even say that anymore, even though it's familiar to me. Now everything's kind of normal. But when we were learning, it was woo-woo, right? But now you can say all these words. But that training kind of takes these concepts that are intangible and says, how do you use these in daily life? How can you actually, what could you do if you knew about chakras? How would that help you in relationships? How would that help you with your communication? How about work or manifesting? Can you use these things in your daily life? And that's where the training gets really fun. And then the second training is what I'm doing now with my wife for the last 5 years, which is called Spirit Mind. And that's actually on spiritmind.com. And we talked a little bit about that here. So those are the two places to find out, either my website, imjeffreyallen.com, or spiritmind.com. Two very, very different trainings, but as you know, everything's all one, right? So it does fit together.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. I loved talking with you and hope to have you back to get the rest of my pages of questions asked and answered from you. So everybody, that's it for today. Sending you lots of love from Sweet Home, Alabama. Mwah! And from Tokyo, too, where Jeffrey is. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Julie.
To enhance your spiritual journey, click on one of the videos below and remember to subscribe, leave a comment, and share with your family and friends.